Hey everyone, and welcome to part 5 of my folium guide. This episode is going to be on how to send the folium coordinates back to your Python program. And we're going to go over how we can do such thing, since currently folium simply saves a map to a file, whether it's interactable or not. And once it's done inserting our custom code, our Python program is basically done, so there's no logic that either waits to receive coordinates or has some sort of folium map interaction. So the first thing we're going to do to structure some of our code is we're going to create a function which is going to handle creating our folium map, so we can start adding some other logic to our main. Create a function that's called create folium map, and let's give it 2 arguments, namely the map file path and the center coordinate. And after we've done that, we'll copy the map creation and the code insertion into the create folium map function. Perfect. So now that that's done, let's go ahead and look at our custom code, which we injected last time. If we remind ourselves what we did in the previous episode, we see that we created a map and it's clickable and it places markers each time we click. And looking at the code, this is basically the marker placement on click. And this would be the longitude latitude pop-up, but this was commented out in the previous episode. So we'd like to remove the fact that this was a comment and actually use it. Because what's going to be handy is that we don't want to send every clicked coordinate to Python, but we kind of want to say, okay, I clicked here. These are somewhat like the coordinates that I'd like. Send them over to Python. I'll remove the contents for now of the pop-up. What we'll do is we'll add a string literal, and inside the string literal, we're going to create a button. So what we'll have is we'll have the pop-up, and inside the pop-up, a button will be displayed. Alright, so after we created the button, this will be, for example, store coordinate. Alright, and the most important thing of this button is going to be the onClick function. This onClick function is going to do a couple things. If we click the button to store the coordinate, we want to definitely create the marker. So let's copy the section where we place the marker at all times and paste it inside the onClick for the button, like so. And then the next thing we'll do is we'll add some logic to send the coordinate over to Python. Now, of course, we haven't created anything to receive the coordinate, but that will come after. The way we're going to send the coordinate to Python is just using a post request. So Python's going to be waiting to receive a post request on a certain HTTP port. And it's going to read the data from the request and receive the coordinate. Let's call on fetch. And in the fetch, we'll say, we want to go to http:/localhost. So this is going to send something to another program that's listening on your own computer, right? So it's nothing over the internet. And the contents of the request will be as follows. So it will be the method will be post. The mode will be, right? So we add these headers. And then finally, we add the most important section, which is going to be the body of the post request, which is going to contain the coordinate we will send. There's going to be a json.stringify, and it's going to be just the coordinate. Perhaps it's already a string. It's going to be latitude something and longitude something. Right, so this latitude is going to be equal to this. Perfect. Whereas the longitude will be equal to this. And the json.stringify will ensure that it's just a string that we can send in the body of the post request. So we've now basically set up the fact that we want to send something port 301 with the HTTP protocol using post. So we're sending some data. So we have this button, but on top of the button, it would be useful to visualize like the exact coordinates we're clicking on. And I think it will be best to add the longitude and latitude to the pop-up by saying we want to add a JavaScript variable, like so, then one of these. And then we'll add another $sign and add the other one. Perfect, it lights up. So we have this text, then we have a button on which it says store coordinate. And if we click store coordinate, it'll place a marker on the folium map and it'll attempt to send the data of the coordinate to some port listening on localhost. So this seems about right. Yeah, so and after that, we're going to add another button, which might need some spacing between it. We'll see how it's aligned. It's going to be called quit. And the onClick it has is going to make sure that the Python program knows that there's no more coordinates coming. So we've got a button to say, store this coordinate, store this coordinate, store that coordinate. And after we've collected the coordinates we'd like, we want, either Python to realize that we're done and, perform some calculation with all the coordinates, or you can set it up however you like. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this fetch that we have over here. We're going to paste it in here. And instead of sending the longitude and latitude, we're gonna remove the stringify, and we're gonna send the letter Q. So what our Python program will do is, did I only receive the letter Q as the body? Then I'll quit. And I'll stop listening for coordinates on this port. Perfect. So now that we've got this going, let's quickly go ahead and save and make sure that our create folium file still works. Make sure that our pop-up contains the two buttons that we desire, and make sure that we can see the text of the longitude and latitude we want to send. Alrighty, so we're now in the correct directory. Let's run our Python program. I think the only thing we haven't done yet is actually called the create folium map. So let's just do that. And after we create the folium map, we'll quickly add some comments. Open the folium map Selenium. We will run web server that listens to send coordinates. After we've listened to the coordinates, we'll close the folium map, right? And then after we're done with the entire folium map, we can print all collected chords, for example. Yeah, and we can whatever you want with them after. I think one of the most useful things to do is just store them to a file, and you can always use them, but that's on you. So let's save, and let's run our program. So we get the new folium map. It seems to be fine. We definitely have to open it in order to be able to see whether it doesn't crash. So let's open it, let's refresh, let's click. We see our latitude and longitude, which we added. And we also see the two buttons, except we can click them all we want. And they might be sending data, but yeah, nothing's receiving the data. Let's go back to our Python program and start with the next section, which will be opening the folium map. So let's create a function for that as well. Let's close the previous function, since we'll only need to edit the custom code. All right, we'll say define open folium map, and we'll send it the file path as well. See. Okay, so next we're going to add this very long file path, which is going to be a sort of URL equivalent for the file path. And this was the one that we used to create the folium map file, and this will be the one which will allow the browser to actually find the file on our computer. So we can have the Python program say, open this file, as a file in the browser using Selenium. And what I'll also quickly do is I'll create a pip environment, so that anytime I don't have a package installed, you guys will see how I install it, so you won't miss any of that. Let me just create a pip environment. Perfect. Let's run the program now that we have a pip environment, so that we can see if I miss any packages. Right, so we don't have folium, but we did install that in the previous guide. So pip install folium. And as you can see, we correctly installed the folium. Let's run our main program again after we've saved it. Okay, we get no errors for now. So what we can do now is we can say, I'm gonna write maybe project map URL. And what I want to do is I want to open this folium map using that function, and it will get that argument. Okay, so let's call open folium map. And let's pass to it the project map URL, so it knows what to open. And then inside of here, we'll start opening the actual map file. Okay, and this will be as follows. This will be driver equals none. And we'll import some Selenium dependencies to be able to start up Selenium or start up the browser. So what we need is the Selenium WebDriver. And if I now run the code, I'll probably get an error because I don't have it installed. Yep, so let's pip install Selenium. And I'll be back after it installs. Perfect. Now that it's installed, we can run our code again, and we'll see that there will be no errors. So we can use the Selenium driver. And one final thing is we're going to be using Chrome for this, or the Chrome driver. I believe you can also use I think it's called Gecko, but you can also use the Firefox or the Internet Explorer or whatever it is driver that you want to use. But I prefer the Chrome driver. So let's go ahead and go to the web browser, and let's open Chrome as well. Right, so if you open Chrome, open on a different screen, but you can go here and you can go to help and about. And in about, you'll see your Chrome version, which will be, for me, is 110. And since it's 110, I need to it looks like it's gonna be 111. So let me just let that update on the side. And in the meantime, I'll look over here for the Chrome driver. So you go to Google for it, and you go into the Chrome driver chromium.org. you go to the download section, and let me see that the install is getting completed, so maybe it's going to be 1.11. Okay, relaunch. Okay, so after the update it ended up being 1.11. It doesn't really matter. It's just important that on the download page over here you can read, if you're using Chrome 111, please download this one. So we're going to download it. And for me it's going to be Windows 32. There's no Windows 64 option. That's fine. Okay, we're now in our project directory. So I'm going to store the zip file. And I'm going to open the folder where the zip file is located. Perfect. So we have the zip file next to our main program. We then want to go inside, and we'll take the Chrome driver and we'll drag it to the parent folder. So it'll unzip it and basically place it there. So when we go back, we now have this Chrome driver.exe file, and on Linux and stuff this works the same. And we'll remove the zip file because it's no longer necessary. Okay, let's close the folder and let's go back to our code. And we can also close the download pages for Chromium or the Chrome driver. And I'll also close Chrome in general. Okay, so now that everything's downloaded correctly, we can see on the left here we also have our Chrome driver installed inside our directory. So in our open folium app, we can now say that the driver equals none. Okay, and what we have to do now is we have to say try driver equals WebDriver.Chrome. So this will create a Chrome WebDriver, and this may crash. That is why we have a try catch around it. And then we say that the driver should go ahead and go to the URL that we passed to it. And I think what I see in my is that we'll have the project URL and we'll have the map file path. Right, so we'll have two things. And we'll say get the project URL and we'll append to it the map file path. Perfect. So if we look at our project URL, we'll go over here and we'll make sure to remove everything that has to do with the file name. So this means that as long as we're working in this project, we can just change the file name of the map and it will still work. Okay, so we now go to the web page and then let's write the accept. We're going to be very bad and just say pass. Maybe for neatness we'll have a print so that we can driver failed to open/find URL, and we'll print the exception as well. Okay, and then finally, if this is all completed, we want to return the driver. So whether it's none or not, it doesn't really matter, because if it crashes right away, we might just want to fix the code. Okay, so after we return the driver, let's go back to here. And what we can say now is here we want to receive our driver. So we say driver equals open folium map. And we want to pass to this thing the project URL as well as the map file path. So these will be appended in order to open it. So let's quickly import time. And now that we imported time, we can test our program by right after starting the driver and going to the URL. We can say time.sleep for 100 seconds. And then we can run our program to see if the map file actually opens after creation. Python main. So we're running our main file now. Getting some cool driver stuff. And as you see, this Chrome thing is flashing right here. So it opened, but you guys can't see it yet. And the only thing we did wrong was my file path is incorrect. So in order to easily fix this, I'll go to the map file and I'll double click it so it opens. And then we've got the actual file path written up here. And if it doesn't open in a browser for you, you can right click and then do the open with. And then in my case, I'm going to open it in Brave. And then I'll copy this file path up here, close it again. And then I'll paste the file path right here. Perfect. And I'll remove this section. And as you can see, it was the hashtag in our file path, which was kind of annoying. So it should work right now. So let's store this and let's run the program again. Okay, we run it again, the browser opens. And as you can see, it now automatically opens the Folium map with our homemade created pop-up. So let's close it again and we can exit out of our sleep. Okay, let's remove our sleep since our map opens successfully. And now we can go tell Python to listen for any coordinates being sent to the port we'd like. And a big part of this is also to make the port changeable. So what we'll have is we'll create a folium port, which will equal to 3001. And this folium port will then also be sent to our create folium map. Right? So create folium map receives this port. And inside create folium map, we have the section for custom code right here. And our custom code will also receive the folium port. And right here, we then need to add the folium port. And this folium port will then be injected over here. So we have 1% s and then no more percentage s's. So let's replace this with %s. So we're going to place a string in here using Python, and we're going to have a second %s right here. It's important to note that we already had an existing %s. We just added one in between. Then we had another existing %s. Then we add another one after that. So what that means is that this was the existing first %s. We then want to add our folium port. We then add another existing %s, and we want to add our folium port after. And then finally we had this already pre-existing %s, which is for this one. All right, so we've now added this to our custom code, which means you can basically change the port at any time, which is useful if the port is taken up, or I don't know, you want to do it over the internet anyway. Okay, so now we create this and we add a custom port. So let's now go ahead and create a class that can receive post requests and store our coordinate data. So the things we're going to import, I believe, are defaults. So you don't have to pip install anything for this. Okay, so this is what you're going to import from HTTP server. You want to import the base HTTP request handler as well as the HTTP server. All right, so for our custom HTTP server, we're going to create a class, and this class is going to be called S, or I'm going to call it folium server. And it's going to be a base HTTP request handler, which is one of the things we just imported. And this thing contains a couple classes or a couple functions which we can override. So we have the set response, right? Self. So this is something default. I'm just going to copy and paste it. Perfect. And then finally we have the important section, which is called do post. And this is going to handle what to do if we receive any post requests. Okay, so in order to decode the post request, we need to do a couple things. We need to determine the content length, which is sent along in the request. It's going to be an int of self.headers. And we want the post data, which is going to be the actual data of the file. Dot read content length, which is the length we just extracted. And then we can say that the actual data is equal to the post data dot decode, since it's, I believe it's bytes, and we want to decode to UTF-8. So I think for testing it's enough if we perhaps print the data, because it's pretty. Yeah, so we now say once we receive a post request, extract the length of the request, try to extract the data, and then decode the data. And this decoded data will either be the queue, which asks Python to quit listening to the coordinates, or it will be a coordinate. Okay, so now that we can test and read our data, let's start using the folium server to receive the data. Let's create a function that is called listen to folium map. And it's only going to receive a port, which by default is going to be the port we're using. And then to use this function, we'll go over here and go ahead and use it, but we'll pass the port so that we can always change it. Perfect. So let's now make this function so that it listens to that port using our created class and our imported HTTP server. Address we're listening to is equal to localhost at the port we're given. And then we want to say HTTPD is equal to the HTTP server that we imported. And to this we give the address as well as the class we just created. So this folium server. You don't have to initialize it, we just want to pass the class name. Right, we'll add a quick print statement to say server started. So what we want to say is we want to have this server run indefinitely because we want to have it listen for folium sending coordinates until we send the queue. And once the queue for quit or the quit button is clicked, basically, we'll exit the loop forever, basically. So let's say httpd.serve forever. Right, so that's all we need to do for the listening part. Except exception as x as. So once we exit the try catch, we want to neatly close the server. Server stopped. Okay, so we listen to our folium map now. And the only thing is that we don't really do anything with what we're listening to. We just print them out, but it's great for an example. After we've done that, we can add another time.sleep to go ahead and check how it works. Right, so sleep for 100 seconds, and let's run our program again. Okay, so currently when we click quit, the queue is sent, so we can click it a couple times. Seems to be weirded out and it sends it twice. Okay, so let's see what's wrong. Oh, of course, I believe these need to be encapsulated as well. So let's put brackets around them, and let's add a $sign as well. Okay, so let's run our code with the fixed custom code section, which has the longitude and latitude that are sent also put into the $sign, since it's a string literal in which this has to be injected. So it's a little tough to see because the JavaScript is not really parsed and colored, but it's fine for now. So let's execute it. The map opens, and then it's important to take a look at the left right here, because if we remember, we print the data here. So this print on line 149 will show us. So we click and nothing should happen. So we have these two buttons, and the left button will send the coordinate. So as you can see, success, we have it in the terminal. And if we click quit, we receive the letter Q. We apparently receive it twice, but we'll fix that in a bit. Okay, we can quit out of our server again, or quit the sleep. So right now you can do whatever you want with this data. And I'm gonna continue a little bit to show you how you could store it to a list or to a file. I think in my case, I'll show you how to add it to a variable, and then after you've clicked quit, how you could process the coordinates, for example. Okay, so let's go ahead and handle the data. And there's one special case, which is going to be if the data dot lowercase is equal to a Q, right? So our quit signal. Then what we want to do is, as you can see, this is just a normal function, and it doesn't actually have to return anything, or maybe it does, but it doesn't in our case. And if you look here, we have this try pass or try accept section. So the way we can quit out of this serve forever is actually by throwing an error on purpose. And what I'm going to throw is a keyboard error, because I like it. So I'm going to throw a keyboard interrupt if a queue is sent, which will end up throwing us out of this try accept, which will then close the server as well as mention that we closed it. So let's save this once again. And what we want to do if it's not a queue is we want to probably store it to some list or to some JSON file, which I'm going to handle over here. So I'm going to, for now, it's important that you can do whatever you want, like store it to a file or do whatever crazy stuff you want to do. But I'm going to say the chords is an empty list. And what I want to then do is I just want to say that if it's not the queue, right? So if we don't throw the error, we'll append the data. We'll just append the data, and we can format it how we like, but we're just going to append the data, and then it's done. And yeah, we're going to print it. We're going to keep the print so you can just see when data is received. And furthermore, we're going to add some final code to actually cleanly close the folium map, as well as handle the collected coordinates for some reason. So let's create a function to close the folium map, right? So we have the open folium map. Let's right below it create a function called close folium map. Let's create a function called close folium map. It receives the driver in which the folium map is running, and it's going to be a very small bit of code. but it's nice to put it in a function because then it's not in the way, basically. So we try to close the driver, and we create the standard catch exception pass, right? So we can once again add a print statement here, but for easiness we won't. Okay, we close the driver, and after we close the driver, so we say close folium map, to which we pass the driver, because that's the thing we're closing. And then finally we could do something with the coordinates, and I think a good thing or a good practice is to store it to a file. So we're going to say coordinate file path equals coords.json, and this coordinate file path will then be stored to JSON. Okay, so we created this file path. Let's now copy it, and let's let's import JSON. So we'll import JSON, which will help us store it to a file. I'll go back down, and we could, and we can say now JSON dot dump, right? And this dump right here, without the S, can take in an object and a file path, whereas the other one just takes in an object and makes it into a string. So let's say dump, and we want to dump the chords object. And where do we want to dump it? We want to dump it in the coordinate file path, and we need the writing operation. Okay, perfect. And then perhaps we can print it right above, just for clarity. So stored, for example. I'm not even going to print it, it's fine. All right, so we create the folium app, we open the folium app, we listen for our coordinates, we remove the break, so we listen indefinitely until a queue is sent, basically. And then once the queue is sent, we close the folium app and we dump all the coordinates to a file. All right, so let's run our program again. Python main. This will open the browser. We can then click. Let me move the map a little bit so we can see it on the left. We click over here, store coordinates. What I do find stupid is that it's supposed to add a marker. But for now we receive one coordinate. Let's click somewhere else and let's store coordinate again. All right, and we receive it twice, it seems. So that's a little bit bugged. So just as before, because this is also inside a string now, we need to make sure that we $sign these as well. Let's store this again. Let's run our file. Make sure all the bugs are gone. Let's click on a coordinate store. Nice, we get a marker as well, so you can remember relatively where you clicked the other coordinates. Let's send another one. It's sending 2 again. Why is it sending 2? Okay, I think I found the origin of our mistake. So part of the folium server that we created, it's important to send a response after the post request. And this will hopefully tell the client which is sending the coordinate, aka the folium map, to not resend anything. All right, click and save one coordinate. Click and save another coordinate. Boom. So we solved the issue now. So we see the first coordinate here and the second coordinate here in Python. And then we'll go back to our map. We'll do one last one. And after we've saved it, right? So we've saved it now. We've got 3 points. We can click quit. The map automatically closes. Some error is thrown, but I believe it's caught. All right, so our final issue comes with throwing the keyboard interrupt, and that the keyboard interrupt actually quits the entire program. So the way we handle that is by saying that we want to actually look and try catch the keyboard interrupt itself instead of just any exception, or because it's not an exception but an interrupt, and we don't even need to worry about the exception. Okay, so let's run our program one final time. Run our program and keep note of this left side over here, because a file should appear after we click our coordinates. So let's click our first coordinate. We can see it in the terminal. Let's click our second coordinate and our third coordinate. Finally, we can click on quit. And after we quit, we say Q, because that's the data that's being printed. The server has stopped. And finally, we are back at, square one. And as you can see on the left, we created a chords.json file, which we can then format if we like. And then over here, you can see the actual data. Now there's one final thing, which I feel it looks like all the data that's being sent is a pure string. So in order to fix that, let's go over to the main file again. And every time we want to append the data, we're going to append the json.dump with an S, so that the data is, or wait, it's the other way around. We're going to say json.loads. So that's going to convert this string of data into actual JSON, which will then be put into a list, and then the list can be stored. So let's run the program one final time. Perfect, server has started. Let's click. Let's do 3 again. All right, and then we'll do quit. Server quits correctly. It's loading. Okay, it saved the coordinates. And as you can see, they are already better. Boom. So these are the first, second, and third coordinates we stored. So hopefully this video was helpful in showing you how you can get your Folium coordinate data to your Python program. If this video was helpful in any way, please leave a like. If you want to see more content like this, feel free to subscribe. If you want to see more Folium content or me doing other stuff with the coordinates in Folium, let me know in the comments and I'll gladly make a video about it. Peace, have a nice day.